search for Mission Impossible Final Reckoning review on Google. And so for those of us who publish websites, the changes in Google and the changes in AI have had a material impact on what we're doing. And so every now and then, out of curiosity, I just see what the current situation is. And I was presented with a screen. I got a colleague who lives 200 miles in the other direction to do exactly the same search and got exactly the same results. And the way Google presents your results now for a review is, first of all, you get an audience chart with bars. How many gave it 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars? The most coveted spot, and publishers have spent millions over the years chasing this, is to be the first text result for a search term. So if you go back to, say, the launch of the PlayStation 5, when that was announced, I think it was Future Publishing had the entire first page of Google, and it had taken 2-3 years of hard work to get that. A lot of SEO optimization, whatever you think of it, a lot of SEO optimization, a lot of targeting keywords, and very precisely written articles, but articles written by a human being. When I search Mission Impossible, the Final Reckoning review, the first text review you now see is an audience review. And so I clicked on that, and my curiosity was piqued by a couple of things. First of all, the construct of the writing was odd, but the reviewer was from the other side of the world, and it's easy to make assumptions that we all write the same way, and we do not. You know, there are cultural differences in the way people approach writing. The alarm bell was this person who's, for that moment in time, had the most important spot for a film review on the internet, effectively, the top spot on Google, had only written 2 film reviews total. The other one was for a film called Raid 2, not the Raid 2. I initially got it confused, but Raid 2. And so there's a service called GPT-0, which does return false positives and isn't faultless, but it gives a guideline of, if you take the text of something, you can paste it in and it will tell you if it's been written by a human or by an AI chatbot. And it came back with 100% probability this review was AI written. And it was a real, like, scales from the eyes moment, that I'm looking at this, I'm just like, we're now competing for a slot that we can't win, that a human being can't win. And instead, in that top spot is an article written by a computer for a computer to digest and then presented in a way that the computer wants. And at no point in that process is there a human being, at any point, until you get to that search result. And I mean, an abundance of questions came up off the back of that, which I then explored in the article.
And I think it's something we're all dealing with now. I guess there's 2 separate issues, isn't there? There's the Google issue,
Yes.
with Google putting so many of its eggs in the AI basket.
Yes.
In terms of the things it's honest about, like the AI overviews at the top of search,
Which
and the things it's
when
less honest about.
Yeah. You've even got people like Mail Online talking about, and I'm not a fan of Mail Online, but talking about the reduction in traffic as a result of that AI overview, that Google will now summarize your article and not give you the click. There's no financial transaction, there's no non-financial transaction there anymore. It is a lifting of that material and representing it in a way that stops the reader going to your site. And the Google issue is broader, because Google is caught in it's almost like a metaphorical arms race with ChatGPT for the search business. And that's actually what we as writers are collateral damage in the midst of at the moment. That for the first time in its existence, Google has a huge rival to the most lucrative part of its business. You know, its flagship product, the search button, the search box, you know, any kind of search. And now its search is dropping away because people are using ChatGPT to search. In my eyes, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul to a degree. But Google's reaction to this is to double down on what ChatGPT is doing, all the while moving us away from the human being. The perception is that AI is getting enough right. And realistically, I think we have to accept, I mean, it's pretty much what we're up against. isn't it? And I know that sounds confrontational, but big tech is not on our side. It just isn't. And the inaccuracies, again, are part of the collateral damage, I would argue, of a multi-billion-dollar race to dominate the AI industry, of which the creative industries are slap bang in no person's land in the middle of it. No, and you have, as much as there are governments in different parts of the world arguing about should creatives get recompensed for their work if it's being fed into AI systems and large language models and training, it's just going to take one government elsewhere in the world, likely America, to say, actually, that's fair use, and it's done. It's just done. And so it's a very fraught moment, I think, at a point where you've got a bunch of people who think the value of the human written word is really something, and in big tech's eyes, it isn't.
I think the point you just made there about one government has to say it's fair use and then
That's
we're done
all it takes.
is so true. And it's one of the things I've been trying to tell people because, you know, our own government recently put out a big consultation and a big paper about how they want to become an AI superpower and all of that sort of stuff. And there's lots of discussion about, well, AI now isn't good enough to replace the human written word, etc. But the decisions we make now will still be in place when AI does get that good.
Also, it's almost, we're at a point now where if a writing job is advertised, that a proportion of the people who are applying for a writing job are using chat GPT to write their application. And I've got anecdotal evidence of that happening several times. So the people who should be flying the flag for writing, there is a proportion of them already who are just, well, chat GPT can do that. So it's almost not, it's not just if it's good enough, you know, but the level it's striving for is that'll do.
Yes.
Because, I mean, if you face it, most things in life that we bumble through have a kind of that'll do criteria. There's stuff that we put our 10,000 hours to where we set a higher bar. But if I'm mowing the lawn, no, I'm not going on gardener's question time in a hurry. There'll come a point that'll do. That's fine. And if you like, the curse of that'll do is hitting writing. And it's also worth noting that some people struggle with writing. You know, I understand why people are looking for. You can't go on YouTube without Grammarly trying to sell you an advert for how to correct your sentence. And I understand these tools. I mean, word processors came in with spell checking in. And so technology to a degree has always given assistance and support. I think the difference here is technology is replacing. It's not that the proportions have changed. It's not a support mechanism anymore. It's becoming the dominant force in the written word, certainly on the front page of Google results.
Definitely. And I think that the phrase you've just used there, the kind of curse of that'll do, is really important because a lot of the times I'll have conversations with people who are more open to AI than I am, for example, and they will say things like, "Well, obviously it's never going to be as good as a human writer, and you write with creativity and soul, it's all of that sort of things." But for most people, that doesn't matter because that will do is enough. Most people don't care if the thing they're reading is beautifully written. Some people do, and we love those people, and they are the people we want reading our stuff. But the people that pay our bills are the that'll do people.
It's also, it removes the entry level, and this is important. So my first job, when I was still at school, I got a weekend job in a petrol station. And I was very, very quiet. I was nervous. I didn't have any confidence. And I did that job for 2.5 years. And the person who came out of it as a result of doing an entry-level job, not necessarily particularly well, but learning and building my confidence, the person who came out was different to the person who wouldn't have had that experience. That job's now taken over by an electronic pump that you put your credit card in. No, most people now, when they go and buy petrol, they don't want to see a human being. No, they know that they barely have to leave the car. Put your fuel in, contactless, etc. You go across industry after industry after industry. Specific to writing, we are in real danger of taking away people's right to not be very good. And this is not a churlish point, that but the first articles I wrote for magazines were edited a lot. I remember I wrote a review of a video game, and it opened with this sprawling anecdote, which I thought was great. This is it. Yeah. And I saw it in print, and it had been edited and taken out, and I didn't quite understand why. And I rang up and asked the editor, and I just said, people don't care about that. That was now that would be a Facebook post, would have been my opening 2 paragraphs of that. And so I was like, okay. And so I learned from that. I became slightly better at that as a result. If you remove the entry level from anything, be it writing, be it packing groceries, be it serving petrol, you take away the bit where we're building our confidence, our identity, and almost fueling our self-belief. And it takes a long time. There are very few people, for instance, who land their dream job at the first go, but the first job is important in terms of these, the parameters, that's that. Okay, I have to get into that mentality, mindset. I have to improve. If we are outsourcing that level to a computer, there is a gap. There is something left behind. And I wish I had the answer as to how people in that gap are going to be able to safely be rubbish, because being rubbish is part of your 10,000 hours. This whole theory, if you put 10,000 hours of your life into something, you become good at it, which generally holds true, I think. But part and parcel of that is being rubbish. You wouldn't step on a tennis court in hour 1 and expect to win many points. In hour 10,000, you'd expect to win lots of points. There is a progression. We might be cutting out, I say we as in a holistic we might be cutting out 2,000 of those 10,000 hours, and they might be the most important ones. Certainly in print and in reporting, I keep hearing stories of look at vinyl in the music industry as if that's going to mirror in other industries. And I'm not convinced. I'm convinced that, that there is space for people who fight really hard to get their voice heard. I do think that. I don't know by what methodology you do that now, but I do think if you've got a voice and a brain and you are absolutely determined, it shortens your odds. It's not foolproof, but it shortens your odds. But more broadly, it's just a lot of unknowns and a lot of questions. And we don't even know where this tech is going. No, we don't know ultimately if it's what people want. I remember when 3D cinema came back, and all of a sudden every film there were films you could not watch in 2D. And it's just like, this is being forced on me. I don't actually have a choice. And I see that a lot with AI, and there's so much money being poured into it. It will be forced on us. What we don't know is 5 years down the line, how much we as consumers at the end of it will push back against it, and how much we'll just like, actually, I want that. We're seeing books published at the moment that have leftover AI language in it. And for me, the one thing I'm holding on to in the midst of all of this is a general principle that if you can't be bothered to write something, I can't be bothered to read it. And for authors putting AI books out who don't check their text, if you can't even read the book with your name on it that has AI text in it, why should I read it? And so I'm not entirely downbeat. I'm just troubled by it. But I do fundamentally think that human beings want to engage with the brains of other human beings. And I hold on to that, but I don't know where that sits in the current ecosystem.
Yes, and the problem as well is that I agree with you that those people exist. The problem is, do those people exist at enough of a critical mass to keep us employed?
It's a bigger problem. Do that. What chance have those people got of getting to that front page of Google or whatever Google migrates into? Because at the moment, the chance is zero because no human being could have that slot.
Exactly. And one of the reasons I reached out
Zero.
to you off the back of reading that article was I had a conversation with another journalist about a similar issue the other day. And we were saying that, oh, well, one of the things that AI will always struggle with is reviewing something because it
And
can't
yet,
create an original opinion. It can only regurgitate what it has heard. But then to read your article and go, well, actually, it's produced enough of an approximation that most
that's it.
people will think that'll do. I want to ask you the question I've asked everyone I've interviewed as part of this series.
Okay.
How worried should we be about AI?
Um, it depends what you want to do with your brain, is actually my answer to that. The, politics is divisive at the moment. Let me answer it this way. There is a president incumbent in America who is causing headlines, and some people are fans of, some people are not. I have zero influence over that. I don't get a vote. And I listened to a piece of advice a while ago, which really kind of went to the heart of a lot of bad stuff that was happening in the world, which is I cannot control goings on. I can only control my response to them. So, should I mean, your question is how worried should we be? My answer to it is I choose to put my brain space into things that I can affect. So, I mean, if I was answering it straight, yeah, I've had my moments of deep worry. Um, there's nothing more I can do than put my own stuff and my own work and my own heart and my own soul out into the world. And if it fails, it fails. And if it hits, great. If we're all rich, amazing. But you know, I, you can fill your head with worry. I would rather use my head to build beyond those 10,000 hours. All I would say is, and I talk to a lot of young writers in particular who are really worried about it. It sounds really twee and cliched, but it is fundamentally true. A computer can't do your brain. No, a computer can try and persuade you to change your brain, but fundamentally, the key point of differentiation you have over a computer is it hasn't got your brain and it can't do what your brain does. So I understand there might be people there despondent and dispirited, and I share bits of that. You know, it's a very, very odd time. All I would say is you have zero chance if you fold to the computer. And I mean, at the very least, whether you go on to make a career in writing or creative arts or anything along those lines, or don't, I do think if you put creative stuff into the world, it's better for you as a rule. And it's just like a mild little act of resistance, isn't it? It's a rage against the machine. And I'm a boring old man. I said it at the start, I say it at the end. And you know, the computer will ultimately defeat me, but I'm going to have a really good try at landing a few punches back.